Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. Hope you're all doing very well today. So I was doing some research on some ball players this morning and I came across this set called the 2014 Panini Golden Age, and it had a couple of really neat ball players in it, some boxers, some pop culture figures as well. And then I came across a name that I was instantly familiar with, and the card itself, I was like, what in God's name is this thing doing here in this set? And it's a card of Frederick Valentich. And if you're not familiar with him, you probably might be if you're into the UFO field and the alien abduction stuff. I immediately knew who this person was, and I had first recognized the name back in, I believe, like 1987, 88 or so, when the episode on him aired on Unsolved Mysteries. I was really kind of like taken aback that actually he has a card in this set. And why that is, I have no idea, because when you look over the checklists, it's just, your average everyday who's who of pop culture figures, plus baseball players, boxers, whatever. So to see this there, it's like an anomaly. It's like it doesn't, check out the one thing that doesn't belong here, right? And that's this card. And so I wanted to share his story with you guys today. It's a little out there, to tell you the truth, from what I'm usually doing on my channel, but it's just so weird. I wanted to share this story, obviously, and it actually brought up a lot of interesting memories for me, because ever since I was a kid, I was like, well, I was dipped into this UFO stuff at an early age because of Star Trek and ET. In fact, I saw ET in the theaters when I was 5 years old, and I immediately thought that aliens existed, and particularly because I had one of these like beanbag chairs that were so popular back in the 80s, and my dad said, "Hey, there's something on your beanbag chair. Go check it out." And I was like, "What is it?" And he's like, "Go check it out." And so I lifted up my chair and I see these ET stickers, and he was like, "Yeah, ET put them there, but he didn't want me to tell you until after you saw the movie." And I was like, "Oh my God, he's real." I tell you a little bit more about my adventures in the UFO field. I don't really tell a whole lot of people that I'm into like UFOs and alien abductions and stuff, because they're like, "Oh, look at the time, I gotta go," right? So, anyway, the articles that I'm gonna tell you about, I think are kind of interesting, and this thing is just so weird that it's in here that I had to share this with you guys. So here we go. This is from the Kenosha News, Kenosha, Wisconsin, October 23rd, 1978. Resumes search for pilot who spotted UFO, then vanishes. Melbourne, Australia. It isn't an aircraft, it's moments after pilot Frederick Valentich told an Australian control tower an identified flying object with four green lights was chasing him, radio transmission was cut off, and nothing more was heard from the 20-year-old pilot or his single-engine Cessna 182. A full-scale search by the Australian Air Force resumed today for the plane and its lone occupant, whose last known position was over the Bass Strait, 130 miles south of Melbourne. Transport Department spokesman Kenneth Williams said Valentich radioed Melbourne Flight Service Control Saturday at 7:06 p.m., 4:06 a.m. Sunday, and reported a UFO was following him at 4,500 feet. He described his pursuer as, quote, "a green light and sort of metallic light on the outside," unquote. Ground control said there was no air traffic in the area below 5,000 feet. Valentich disagreed. "It has four bright lights, appeared to be landing lights. Aircraft has just passed over me about 1,000 feet above." "Can you identify the aircraft?" Control asked. "It isn't an aircraft, it's—" Then silence. 2 minutes later, Valentich's voice rasped over the radio again. "Melbourne, it's approaching from due east toward me. It seems to be playing some sort of game, flying at a speed I cannot estimate. It is flying past. It is a long shape. Cannot identify more than that. Coming for me right now. It seems to be stationary. I'm orbiting, circling, and the thing is orbiting on top of me also. It has a green light and sort of metallic light on the outside." Suddenly Valentich reported his engine was choking. Metallic scratching replaced the pilot's voice. Then there is no sound at all. When the aircraft did not arrive at King Island on schedule, investigators began an air search but found no sign of the craft. Air Force planes sighted an oil slick about 18 miles north of King Island, but transport officials said it was not made by the light aircraft. An air transport official said Valentich had been flying for 18 months and was accumulating hours for a commercial pilot's license. "It is possible that he could have become disorientated," the official said. "The aircraft could have inverted and he could have seen reflections of the Cape Otway and King Island lighthouses on the clouds above him." He said the Cessna's engine would fail if it flown upside down. Valentich's father said his son has been interested in UFOs for many years and reported sighting one about 10 months ago. But whether a UFO has had anything to do with his disappearance in his plane is something I'm not sure about, the father said. This is from the unsolvedmysteries.com. It's the case details in this case, and it states on October 21, 1978, just south of Melbourne, Australia, a single engine Cessna lifted off from Moorebatten Airport. The pilot was 20-year-old Frederick Valentich. Valentich had been flying for 2 years and logged over 150 hours of solo time. Headed for King Island, his flight plan called for a 40-minute trip west along the Australian coast. Then, at Cape Otway, he would head south for the half-hour run over Bass Strait. Ken Llewellyn of the Royal Australian Air Force had this to say about Fred's flight, quote, "It was fairly normal exercise. He had an appropriate instrument rating for the trip. It was a very straightforward flight, and I could not see no reason why it should have concluded successfully. It happened 3/4 of an hour into the flight. I think it will be one of the great mysteries of Australian aviation." Unquote. Valentich was in contact with a flight service center on the ground when he reported a large aircraft that passed 1,000 feet above him several times. Stephen Roby was the ground control communicating with Fred. He wasn't to the point where he was panicking, but he was genuinely concerned by what he saw. With what he saw, he was worried. He sounded confused, and then he described what the aircraft was doing. "I became a little concerned too." Unquote. What Fred reported was that the craft was stationary, hovering in midair as he flew around it. The following is a transcript of the radio communication. Fred, "It's got a green light that's sort of metallic, like it's shiny all over. It's just disappeared. Is this some sort of military aircraft or what? Tower, Delta Sierra Juliet, is the aircraft still with you? Fred, Delta Sierra Juliet now approaching from the southwest. Delta Sierra Juliet, the engine gone into half idle. I've got it set on 2324. This thing's just coughing. This strange aircraft's just hovering on top of me again. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft." Suddenly an unidentifiable clicking noise came over the radio. The sound lasted 17 seconds, then silence. For 4 days, a flotilla of search vessels crisscrossed Bass Strait. There was absolutely no sign of Valentich or his aircraft. There was no evidence to suggest there ever had been a crash. All that remained was a final baffling radio transmission. People could only speculate as to what really happened until a witness came forward with a first-hand account. Around the time of Valentich's disappearance, an eyewitness and his family were returning from an afternoon outing when they noticed unusual activity in the sky. The witness has asked that we do not reveal his identity. I looked up and saw this long green light about 1,000 to 2,000 feet above the aircraft. So we sat there and watched it for a few seconds, and the green light crept closer to the plane. I said, "That plane is coming down pretty steep. It's on a 45-degree angle." I said, "I think it's going to crash." The eyewitness account suggested that perhaps Valentich had an encounter with a UFO. He never saw whether the plane crashed. The only certainty was that Valentich had vanished. 6 weeks later, an amateur photographer came forward with an even more startling evidence. On the evening of the flight, Roy Manifold had been setting up to photograph a sunset at Cape Otway, which was almost directly under Valentich's flight path. I'd done the normal thing, had the camera on automatic exposure, and I took 6 photographs of the sun disappearing into the sea. When developed, Manifold said one of the photographs displayed a peculiar blemish. I observed this mark on the print that looked like a developing error or something. They messed it up, I said. Just a minute. That night I took this exactly the night that this guy disappeared. A leading Australian photo lab found neither dirt nor damage on the negative, determining that the strange mark was actually in the picture. The negative was later sent to the United States for computer analysis by a team of UFO researchers. They claimed that the blot was actually a solid metallic object. To them, it appeared to be enveloped in a cloud of exhaust, situated about a mile from the camera. A second analysis, however, stated that the mark could be a developing error. Either way, Roy Manifold believes the photograph does show something of consequence. Unfortunately, I didn't see it, and I didn't hear anything that night either. First time I've had something on my printings, and I've got done thousands of photographs, and without any incidents or anything like that on them. 30 years have passed since Frederick Valentich flew off to his uncertain fate. However, the questions raised by his mysterious disappearance are just as disturbing today. What exactly did Valentich see in the minutes before radio contact was lost? Perhaps the secret of Frederick Valentich lies many fathoms beneath Bass Strait, or perhaps it lies far from our planet, light years beyond our understanding. Frederick's father, Guido Valentich, passed away in 2000, and he never got to the bottom of this. He never knew if his son was dead or alive, or if he just, kind of sailed off into the sunset trying to live another life. That's been a theory that's been on a lot of people's minds too, and the fact that he actually was into UFOs prior to seeing this. Um, I don't know, tell you the truth, if he actually did see a UFO or he just wanted to create another life for himself and kind of made this up, probably to gain some kind of attention or notoriety. Um, I uh, I kind of walked away from UFOs and alien abductions a long time ago, just because uh, the um, the subject itself just got really a little too strange, and I kind of walked away. And then a couple of years ago, Joe Rogan had Commander David Fravor on his program, and it just sucked me right back into it. And I was like, Joe Rogan, you suck. And so, not really. I love Joe Rogan, but I could have easily walked away from this subject like a long time ago and just left it behind. And then obviously David Fravor has his sighting, and then after that, Bob Lazar, he had him on his program, and I knew all of these cases like the back of my hand, and I studied this stuff for years and years, and I actually had a UFO sighting myself in 2021, and I photographed it, and it was just so bizarre. Like, I'm not gonna explain exactly what I saw here, because I really don't wanna get back into this subject, but then, like, in 2017, the New York Times had their investigation on, what they call now UAPs, which I'm not gonna say UAP, a UFO. So it's one thing if I see something in the sky, but it's something completely different when you see, Navy personnel, or military or police officers, and they have experiences and they actually catch this stuff on film. So I consider them to be very credible subjects, and I could get into this subject for forever, and I really don't want to. Because again, I'd rather leave it in the past. But when I saw this card of Frederick Valentich, I was like, "Oh my God, this is so bizarre. Like, I don't even know what to make of this. Like, why would anybody put Frederick Valentich on a card in a pop culture card? Maybe that's the point. But here's the thing: is I was looking over the checklist, and it's just your who's who of like average everyday uh, ball players and movie celebrities and all this other stuff, and then you have Frederick Valentich. However, it may surprise you that he is not the only one who has witnessed a UFO to be included in this set. And the other one is Jackie Gleason. And you're probably like, Jackie Gleason from the Honeymooners? Yes, that's the same guy. I obviously know of Jackie Gleason from the Honeymooners, but he also had the Jackie Gleason Orchestra. I'm actually going to leave a link down below in the description of some of his songs that I think were really great because he was a really great musician on top of everything else, a very talented guy. But he also believed in UFOs as well, and he studied up on this stuff, probably back in like the 50s and 60s. And I found a few articles here too about Jackie Gleason. One thing I'm going to kind of caution you guys on with this story is that it doesn't come from Jackie Gleason himself. He had been passed on at this point when this story came out, and it comes from his second wife, I believe, who he had told her, and I guess it really bothered him of what had happened. But I'm gonna read the article anyway, and see what you guys think afterwards. So here we go. This is from HowStuffWorks.com. Jackie Gleason sees a UFO. The late comedian Jackie Gleason's second wife Beverly tells a strange story that she swears is true. One evening in 1973, she writes an unpublished book on their marriage. Gleason returned to her Florida home badly shaken. After first refusing to tell her why he was so upset, Gleason confided that earlier in the day his friend President Richard Nixon had arranged for him to visit Homestead Air Force Base in Florida. Upon his arrival, armed guards took Gleason to a building at a remote location on the site. There, Gleason, who harbored an intense interest in UFOs, saw embalmed bodies of four alien beings, 2 feet long with small bald heads and big ears. He was told nothing about the circumstances of their recovery. He swore his wife to secrecy, but after their divorce, Beverly freely discussed the story. In the mid 1980s, when ufologist Larry Bryant sued the U.S. government to reveal its UFO secrets, he tried without success to subpoena Gleason. This kind of reminds me of the 1955 Hopkinsville encounter. And I stayed away from this stuff a long, long time ago, and I got like sucked back in. But I thought this would be like a really interesting and very strange case here. Again, why this card actually exists. I'd love to contact Panini and ask them, like, again, you have all these ball players and boxers and whatever and pop stars. Why this particular card? Was it a favorite of somebody at Panini? I have no idea. I think UFOs, obviously, they exist. The military and the government have now said yes, like there are UFOs. They may not be from here, and they're probably from outside the sphere. And if you guys actually have listened to the latest batch of congressional testimony that we had several months ago, which I did hear that uh, one of the guys that they had up under oath said that the United States has alien bodies in its possession and craft. Um, this kind of opens up for other things, technology wise. That's another subject altogether. Um, and I can get into this stuff all day long, and theories fly out. And you know, one of the things I think that's kind of interesting is the technology aspect of this, and the same thing with Bob Lazar. So Bob Lazar was more interested in the technology and how these things actually propelled through the air. And one thing that Bob Lazar said early on was that when they're flying, they're not flying like this as you see in The Day the Earth Stood Still, or what's that other movie from the 1950s, Earth versus the Flying Saucers. So if you guys haven't seen those, they're pretty good. I enjoy them. But Bob Lazar said that the objects actually fly on their side, and that's how they propel themselves. Obviously, the way they get here is through an element called element 115, and you know it's manufactured, but we don't have the technology to do that. We don't have the resources. If you guys want to go to Spotify and check out what either Bob Lazar had said or David Fravor, I highly recommend it if you're into this subject. So for me personally, I'd rather walk away again, but I don't think that's possible at this point. I've been, steeped in this stuff since I was 5 years old, and I've believed in, aliens and UFOs ever since. But that doesn't mean that, when you see something on TV, it's something different than when you're seeing it in person. And that's the one thing that I kind of took away from my own sighting was that, what the hell is this? And it shouldn't be here. It was just very weird. What I saw was two orbs that were following a jetliner. It was so weird. I'm like, what's going on? And then, like there's a cube that I saw as well, and it was just rolling by. And I don't think we have any technology that's a cube that kind of like spins as it's going through the air. I don't think we have that technology. Um, I don't know why we would, to tell you the truth. So for me, I'd rather kind of just like go about my business and collect baseball cards and not have to worry about aliens or alien abductions or UFOs. Because first off, that would suck too, being abducted by an alien. No way, not at all. And I'm actually reading a book by Calvin Parker called the Pascagoula Incident, and that's actually really interesting too. Yeah, I think I've dated a couple of Martians in my day. So, anyway, that's another story for another time. Anyway, guys, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this subject, what you think, and why this card actually is in this set. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but maybe you guys could fill me in on something. I just don't know. And again, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So, until the next time, I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.